Om Agnatimirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayakudiraye Yam Pravajantam Anapetyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajulava Putreti Tammayatayo Taravo Vinedustam Sarvabhutam Munimanatoshmi Bhaktiya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Paradram Tato Manastigati Anachapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. If you just move across a little bit, because the ladies are sitting, Prabhuji, you should sit this side. Ladies here, and men this side. So, we've been moving our way through the fourth canto, but each day I've tried to demonstrate the links and the verses and how it's connecting up. And today, the first words of the chapter that we're going to discuss today is Sutta Uvacha. So Sutta Goswami. So this is the first time in this volume that Sutta's name has been mentioned. And we should know the history very clearly. We have the first invocation verse. Janmadi asya yata nivyaritaraskartasheshu apignat surat tene brahma kridaya adikavaya muyanti yat saraya teje vari mridam yata vinamoya yatra trishargo mrisham damna swena nirastakukam satyam paramahimahi dimahi. So this Satyam Paramadimahi we've been contemplating daily. This Bhakti Devi and the Gora Ras, the mood of Gora. We cannot understand the teachings that Narad gave to Vyas when he was feeling his despondency unless we understand the aspect of Bhakti. And that is most demonstrated in the 10th canto. It's in the 10th canto that the full Madhurya Bhav is manifested. So then that verse I've just quoted is like the invocation for the first canto. Then the second verse, Dharma Projit Kaitavatra Parama Nirmat Saranam Shatam. This is describing the content of the Bhagavatam, that it's going to it's not a cheating process. It's not designed to give you just moksha, just give you liberation. It's beyond the four, what are they called? Moksha, four Purushartha. Yeah, the four goals of life. It's the Prem Purata. It's the Prem. It's beyond the four goals of life. So Prem. And then in the third verse of the first canto, Nigama Kalpataro Garikam Phalam Sukhamuhat Amrita Dravam Samyujam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhua, repeatedly, Mahua Aho Rasik Bhuvi Bhavuka. So we've been discussing this Rasa Tattva something in the evening, and we should see how it's referenced right at the very beginning of the Bhagavatam. This rasam, this alayam, this rasic scripture. So the ras, we described yesterday, the difference between bhakti and bhakti ras, the ingredients. So now today, then we come to the fourth verse of the first chapter. It's Naimisha Ketra, and it's describing the sages at Naimisharanya. So I just want to give a little brief picture of the dynamics of the conversation. So Sutta Goswami is speaking to Sonaka Rishi. So previously, before the battle of Kurukshetra, listen carefully, Anita, because I want you to make a diagram for me eventually. You can do it if you're enthusiastic for the Bhagavatam. So 5,000 years ago, a great sacrifice began by the sages in Naimisharanya. Where is Naimisharanya? Naimisharanya is about 2 hours driving east of Lucknow. You know Lucknow, Kanpur? Kanpur is 6 hours from Mathura. So east towards this way, 2 hours, is the great forest of Naimisharanya. And I went there last year. It's very, very beautiful. It's on the Gomati River. And there are hundreds of huge banyan trees and peepal trees there. It's really, really a beautiful place. So 88,000 sages went there to perform this yajna to offset the prevailing negative influences of Kali Yuga. That was their intention, that was their purpose. And it's described in that particular place, that location, all those sages, it's about a 15-mile radius. All those sages had their various ashrams, and they all wanted to stay on the bank of the Gomati. So actually it's described that Gomati expanded herself and made more weaves in her flow so that it would create more banks on the side of the river, so more ashrams could be right on the river, because the sages have to bath every day, they have to have water. So you see there that Gomati is very much twirling around. It's a very beautiful place. So there, Ramaharsana was the Mahant of those sages. And he is one of the disciples of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva had 5 principal disciples. There were 4 disciples who took the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Artha, Yagya, Soma, and Yatava Veda. And each was given a Veda. And Ramaharsana, he was given the Puranas and the Itihasyas to describe and compile and unpack, basically. So Ramaharsana was in charge of that yajna. Now, we know from history that Baladev Prabhu, he didn't attend the Kurukshetra war. And at that time, he went on pilgrimage. So this is 5,000 years ago. So he came to Naimisharanya at that time. And there's, of course, the pastime written in the Bhagavatam of when Baladev comes into that assembly and everyone rises, except Ramaharsana, who's sitting on the Vyasasana. And Baladev Prabhu can understand that even though Ramaharsana is very elevated personality, but still he doesn't have this vital ingredient of humility to actually recognize Baladev for his greatness, his personality, the exalted personality of Godhead, Baladev. So he realizes that actually he's unqualified to reside over that assembly. So at that time he takes a blade of grass and he just touches it to Ramaharsana, and Ramaharsana leaves his body. And all the sages become very, very disturbed because they've already benedicted Ramaharsana with so much potency to actually speak this, these truths, these Puranas in this assembly. And and then Baladev, he installs the son, Sutta, Ramaharsana Sutta, or Ugrasharva, the Sutta, the son of Ramaharsana, as the Mahant of that assembly. So this is where Sutta is first installed. Now, this yajna was going on for 1,000 years. They had agreed to sit for 1,000 years. And so after the Kurukshetra war, and after Krishna has performed his disappearing pastimes, then after he's come back to Mathura and killed Dantavakra, and then after he's actually taken all the Brijbasis, no, sorry, I've jumped ahead a little. Okay, I have to get the sequence correct. So after the Kurukshetra war, then Krishna comes to Hastinapur, which is the seat of the capital of the Kuru dynasty, and which is called Delhi today. So there he stays for some months, installing Yudhishthira, etc., and the new kings of the new order. And of course, all the other lower kings have all been annihilated, 640 million people on the battle of Kurukshetra. And just when he's leaving Hastinapur, then Queen Kunti offers him these beautiful prayers. And at the same time, just when he's about to depart, then Uttara, the wife of Abhimanyu, runs to him and says, "Oh, there's an iron arrow coming from Ashvatam aimed at my womb." So in her womb is Parikshit. So then Krishna, he enters the womb of Uttara at that time, and he saves the life of Parikshit. And then just after that, Parikshit takes his birth. And then Krishna goes back to Dwarka, performs that Prabhash pastime of his disappearance Leela, and all the inhabitants and residents of Dwarka. And then after that, he comes back to Mathura, because he doesn't really leave. Another aspect of Krishna comes back to Braj. After his disappearing pastime to all the Devas in Prabhash, he comes back to Braj to relieve the inhabitants of Braj and take them all back to Goloka Vrindavan. At that time, he kills Dantavakra. So it's just after that Arjuna comes back and presents himself at the palace, mortified that Krishna has actually left this world. And soon after that, all the Dhritarashtra leaves this world, and then all the rest of the Pandavas, they all leave this world. And then Parikshit is installed. By this time, Parikshit is about 20 years old. He's not a baby. He's about 20 years old, Parikshit, at this time, when he's installed as the king, when Yudhishthira Maharaj leaves. There's about a 20-year sequence that I've described, with the time in Hastinapur, the time when Krishna goes to Prabhash, the pastime of Krishna's annihilation of his family, then coming back to Braj, etc., Dantavakra. This is all, and then the Dhritarashtra leaving, then the Pandavas leaving. This is all approximately 20 years. And then after this 20 years, then they all leave, then Parikshit Maharaj is installed, and then for about 10, 12 years, Parikshit Maharaj is ruling the planet. And he confronts Kali Maharaj at this time. And it's not until after Kali Maharaj that he offends Samika, this rishi who's meditating, and Shringi curses him. So this is about 15 years after he's been installed. So Parikshit Maharaj now is about 35, 36 years old. So it's at this time that he goes to the bank of the Ganga. But he doesn't go to the bank of the Ganga near Hastinapur, because all his family, etc., are there. He goes to Shukratal. You know where Shukratal is? Shukratal is where the Bhagavatam was actually spoken. It's near Haridwar. It's north of Delhi. Shukratal. It's the place where the Bhagavat Mahatmya was also spoken by the Kumaras when Narada Rishi went with Bhakti Devi and Gyan and Vairagya, the two sons, and he went making his inquiry. Remember this pastime, making this inquiry? Oh, why is Bhakti Devi, why are Gyan and Vairagya not being revived? Bhakti Devi is still youthful, but Gyan and Vairagya. So he goes to Shukratal and he inquires, and there the four Kumars, they manifest. And then it's the Bhagavat Mahatmya is spoken at that place. This is Shukratal. So when Parikshit sits down to ask his questions, so many thousands of sages come from all the higher planets. They all hear. It's described in the Bhagavatam that they actually come down the transcendental Ganga Devi. They come in the body of the water through the medium of the Ganga, and then they land at Shukratal. And meanwhile, this yagya is in process in Naimisharanya. This is what I want to put in context. It's like two lines. We have the line coming from, I've drawn it in a diagram, but you're going to make it very beautiful. Some graphic artist is going to make it right out. But it's two considerations. We have Krishna and the Kurukshetra war, and then we have the Naimisharanya sacrifice. So then, Sutta Goswami, he leaves Naimisharanya, and he comes across. It's about a 600 or 700 mile walk, which is what they would regularly navigate through, horses or chariots or carriages, etc. So he came from Naimisharanya across to Shukratal, and he listens attentively to the whole conversation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And after Parikshit leaves his body, when he's been bitten by Taraksha, the snake bird, No, before even this, you see, all the sages knew through their mystic vision that this great special conversation was going to take place between Parikshit and Shukadev. They all knew this Bhagavat, so they all came to Shukratal to hear it. At that time, Sutta comes. Sutta is one of the sages. If you see the Bhagavatam, if you open the Bhagavatam on the very front, in the front, that's it. Yes, the picture. Yes, hold the picture. You see, you look at the picture. This is Parikshit, and he's speaking to Shukadev, and Sutta Goswami is in the assembly. Sutta Goswami, Vyasadeva is there, Narada is there, all these great personalities are there. This is at Shukratal. Sutta has come across to hear. And then he hears, and then after Parikshit leaves, then Sutta Goswami goes back to the yagya. And it's at that time that Sonaka Rishi, who hasn't left Naimisharanya, he is heading up the sages. It says in the Bhagavatam, it says that Shonaka was in charge of the sages. So he comes to Sutta Goswami and inquires, "O Sutta, what did you hear at that time in Shukratal?" So this is the context, this is the story. Yes, between Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami. That's what Sutta is going to repeat.
Where is it written, this that you say in Mahabharata?
No, this is written in the first canto by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the 4th verse, when it's the first chapter, when it's been described, the setting of Naimisharanya, how the sages, they all met in Naimisharanya. But they had met before this because Baladev Prabhu came into that assembly and he kills Ramaharsana. And that's during the Kurukshetra war. So it's at that time that Sutta is installed. So to get the time sequence. So Sutta then, he begins to reiterate what he heard. But at this point, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a very interesting comment. He said that the sages at Naimisharanya, they were not bhaktas. They were not like transcendentalists entirely. They were actually sakam yogis. They had a desire for moksha. They had a desire for something of this world. So this is another dynamic of the whole Bhagavatam that we see very quickly. It's purifying all those sages, because in the first chapter they present all their questions. And then when in the second chapter, when Sutta Goswami starts to answer, because it's only Sutta Goswami speaking here. It's not Parikshit. Parikshit doesn't start until about the 14th, 15th. Actually, he doesn't start his inquiry till the second canto. Shukadev only appears at the end of the first canto. So it's Sutta Goswami all the way through the first canto. And then Sutta is so empowered by his association with Shukadev and Parikshit that after the second chapter, he's already convinced all the sages that actually moksha is a secondary path, that actually we will go for bhakti, because the sages are already demonstrating these very strong moods of bhakti, and all their questions are coming about Krishna. They want to know about Krishna. They want to know about this topic. This is their hunger. So this is the evolution. This is how the conversation moves along. You understand all that? Huh?
It's not very chronologically written, but
No, we have to piece it together. I've pieced all this together, and I haven't had anyone to contradict me yet. So if anyone wants to contradict me, they can. But this is what I've understood from reading the Bhagavatam. This is how the sequence... Because Sutta is there, and Sutta is there in Naimisharanya when Brahmaharsana is killed by Baladev. And Baladev is there during the Kurukshetra war. So if someone can put it together and explain it...
Sutta is in front of when Baladev kills his father.
Sutta is just a little boy, yes, when Baladev kills his father. He's a young boy. He's a young boy.
Beginning
Of the yagya, yes. That yagya has just started, they're just going, and then Baladev enters.
How old is Sutta when he goes to here to the Kurukshetra?
I don't know the exact age. I would say he's probably about 25, 30 years old. Because it's a parallel to Parikshit. It's close to Parikshit's.
Because he understands the Dharma of his father.
He's more than that. He was empowered by Baladev Prabhu. Baladev invested in his heart all the energy to perceive the entirety of the Bhagavatam. This is Sutta's great, great speciality. He was not just installed and benedicted by the sages there, he was actually empowered. It's described clearly in the, it may be in the 10th canto, the story of Baladev visiting Ramaharsana. I think it's in the 10th canto. In the Krishna storybook, there's a story. You can look.
it's a book.
Krishna book, yeah. I tell you right now, from my list of chapters, you see. It's helpful to have these little lists of chapters. But I have an upgrade on this. 10th canto.
This is so helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I told you before, I work in pictures, and Stuart's going to make a whole picture of the whole Bhagavatam for us. I can't find the chapter offhand. But the chapter's in the 10th canto, I think, where Baladev goes on Parik... 10th canto, yeah. I can't just find it here. If you want to have a look, you can put your finger on it.
The other Srila Bhagavatam, Srila Swami Prabhupada, is there, and the same, this is not there. Is it?
All the facts are there, they're just presented in different ways. You have to take from both. You found the chapter?
Killing of Dantavakra, Vidurata, and Ramaharsana.
Oh, and Ramaharsana. That's all in the same chapter.
65, I don't know that chapter.
Let me see.
There.
The killing of Dantavakra and Ramaharsana. So that's in 78, chapter 78 of the 10th canto. So, if we're interested, I have a beautiful verse here to share with you today. This is from Sanatan Goswami. Mandeka bandhu matsangi madguru man mahadane man nirastaka madbhagyo madananda namostute. This means, O holy Bhagavat. This is Sanatan Goswami honoring the Bhagavat. You are my only company, my only friend, and my guru. You are my greatest treasure, my personal savior, the emblem of my highest fortune, and the very form of ecstasy. I offer my obeisances to you. Very beautiful prayer by Sanatana Goswami, showing his great affection for this. And of course, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur has described this whole Bhagavatam as being the treasure of satisfaction for the heart. It's a very beautiful expression. The treasure of satisfaction of the heart is this Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's always referencing Shukadev Goswami as being the eye of the universe, because everything is here, everything is into it. So I just thought I'd go through those things first this morning and sort of give us a deeper appreciation. But certainly this time sequence I find fascinating anyway. Huh? Sorry? Now we're on chapter 13 today in Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's. Sorry?
What page are you on?
Chapter 13. Page 238. So the first words were Sutta Uvacha, which is why I went into that reference to just pack us into the picture of the dynamic of how it's been going forward. And it's another interesting thing is that many of the pastimes we should understand, as I said before, were initially written by Vyasadeva before he had that vision gifted from Narad to actually see all of Krishna's pastimes and compile the whole Bhagavatam. It's written very clearly by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur that he'd already written an abbreviated version of the 10th canto. So some of these pastimes we can appreciate were probably written, prior, which don't contain quite as much of a focus on bhakti as other chapters do. Some of the chapters Krishna manifests and he's demonstrating, and there's gifts written at the end of the chapters that you'll get so many benedictions and things like this. You can actually start to differentiate that portions of it are much more, of course the current of Madhurya Ras is throughout because it's all connected and all linked and it's all being completely like re-edited, so to speak. But there were parts of it that were certainly there prior to the vision that Narada gave.
What is the meaning of this? This is very interesting.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it's incredible. That it says specifically the words are that Vyasadeva had already written, compiled an abbreviated version of the Bhagavatam. So he had in his mind, Prithu Maharaj, Venu, Dhruva, all these personalities were already there in a link. But the Madhurya pastimes, Vyasadeva was not confident to actually present to the world.
You just said that he written a version of the 10th canto before.
No, I said the Bhagavatam. The 10th canto in principle is what was revealed through Narad's vision that he gave when all Maya was pulled away and Vyasadeva could see very clearly Madhurya Ras and the need in this age for this. Because remember, historically again, prior to the advent of Mahaprabhu, prior to the advent of Krishna 5,000 years ago, these Rasic topics were not on the map. They were not discussed. They were not understood. Madhurya Ras was not there. Madhurya Ras was there like in embryo form, so to speak, for some great Siddha Purushas. But in principle, it was the goal of life were these four Purusarthas, and the avatars, they were all very much Aishwarya Bhav, Aishwarya mood. And the Yuga Dharmas of the age, they were all around, like in Satya Yuga, for example, Tapasya, to see Paramatma in the heart. This was the meditation for 100,000 years of the residents in Satya Yuga. And then Treta Yuga, it's Vamana Dev and sacrifice, Yagya, Treta Yuga. And then Dwapara Yuga is deity worship. And then Krishna appears in this Dwapara Yuga, but in prior Dwapara Yugas it would have been a more Lakshmi Narayan type of avatar, but not the sweetness of Madhurya Krishna.
It seems like Mahaprana, like Damodar Ashtakam, kind of showed Madhura, the devotees,
Yeah, in Damodar Ashtakam, this is an exception. Satyabrat Muni has been benedicted with such a vision in the heart of actually baby Krishna and Mother Yashoda, but this is an exception. This is why we honor this prayer so significantly, is because it's such a Rasik prayer, but it was actually written millions of years ago. So this is a very good exception to actually these events. But we should see in context with the general mass of people, they did not have access to these topics. But today, the general mass of people even have access to these topics. We have access to these topics. Access ultimately means, do you want to appreciate these topics or not? They're always there, but do you have the desire to appreciate them or not? So it's Mahaprabhu's gift that gives us the desire to appreciate these topics. Just by vibrating Hare Krishna mantra gives us sufficient qualification to actually hear these topics. Okay, that's something of the history. So now Sutta is saying that after hearing about the ascent of Dhruva to the Lord's abode from Maitreya, Vidura, his devotion to the Lord increasing, began to inquire from Maitreya again. So it's significant that his devotion is increasing. This is the dynamic of bhakti. If it's not increasing, then you're not really fixed in a proper place. It's floundering. So it's saying that Vidura's bhakti, his devotion, was increasing. Now Vidura said, he inquires about the Prachetas. Whose sons were they? Because in this previous verse, 40, it's referencing, Narad has referenced, seeing the glories of Dhruva, Narad playing on his Vena, sang verses in the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas. He only mentions the word once, but Vidura picks it up. He wonders, who are these Prachetas? Prachetana. Prachina actually means ancient. Put it up. Okay. So only this Prachetanas has been mentioned once, very briefly in one sentence, but Vidura picks it up and inquires who they were. And then Vidura, Vidura continues. He says, I know Narad is the great devotee who saw the Lord. He spoke the Pancharatra scripture concerning the service of the Lord. And now, O Brahmana, he's inquiring from Maitreya, you should describe fully to me, eager to hear, the topics of the Lord which Narad spoke. Now Maitreya begins. Maitreya said, when Dhruva disappeared in the forest, Maitreya doesn't immediately jump to Prachetas. When Dhruva departed in the forest, his son Utkal did not want the throne of his father or the wealth of the whole earth. His son Utkal is described as like a jnani, is a self-realized jnani in the Brahman. And therefore his activities in the world are very esoteric and not practically inclined. Therefore he was actually unqualified for the throne. So then his younger brother was enthroned as the king. And then it goes through the different lineages from his younger brother. It goes to the children and the grandchildren, etc. And after about 3 generations, you get to one son called Anga. And the wife of Anga is called Sunita. And she gave birth to a fearful son named Vena. The saintly King Anga, disgusted with Vena's bad character, left home. So this is the storyline. So it's continuing in Dhruva's lineage, but it's about 3 generations down, and we're talking about King Anga. And Maitreya describes it in capsule form, but then Vidura, he asks more pointedly. He says, how could King Anga, an ocean of good qualities, saintly, respectful to the Brahmanas, a great devotee, have had a son which caused him to leave home in disgrace? So Vidura becomes curious about this family aspect. And then why did the sages, conversant with Dharma, understanding their act would be sinful, punish and curse Vena? So then Vidura is asking these very pertinent questions. And then Maitreya, he responds, saintly King Anga performed a great horse sacrifice, but the Devatas, called by the Brahmanas, did not come. Must have been depressing. You call for the Devas and they don't come. That means all your strength is like not acknowledged. King, the offerings are... Surprised, the priest said to the king, the sponsor of the sacrifice, the Devatas did not accept the oblations we have offered. O king, the offerings are not contaminated and were collected with faith. The mantras are not weak and were chanted by dedicated brahmanas. We do not know what insult we have committed to the Devatas who witnessed the sacrifice, by which they refused their share. Maitreya said, hearing the words of the brahmanas, Anga, the sponsor, became depressed. Taking their permission, he spoke to the assembled persons to inquire about this. The Devatas, though called, did not come, and did not accept their share of the soma, of the sacrifice. Leaders of the assembly, tell me if I have committed some offense. The leaders of the assembly said, O king, in this life you do not have the slightest sin. There is one sin from previous lives by which you, though sinless now, are without a son in this life. So, he made one mistake in the previous birth. Therefore, produce a good son for yourself. All fortune will be yours. These are the leaders, the sages speaking to Anga. The enjoyer of sacrifice, the Supreme Lord, worshipped by you, will bestow a son to you, desirous of a son. Then the Devatas will accept their share of the sacrifice, since the Lord of sacrifice will be present for giving a son. So then Anga, he performs a yajna to receive the benediction to have a son. And it's described, a man wearing a golden garland and white cloth, carrying cooked milk rice in a golden pot, came out of the fire sacrifice. The wise king, taking the permission of the brahmanas, took the rice in his hand, smelt it with delight, and offered it to his wife. The queen ate this food for producing a male child from the king, and a fetus developed. In due time, a son was born. The male child took his maternal grandfather, who is death, who appeared as a portion of Adharma, which we've already discussed. So now, something of the lineage of these personalities is going to be discussed in the form of Vena. So we're going through, it's all contextual, it's all linked to the families. Because of this, he was irreligious. And then it's described being very cruel and merciless. He would violently kill his friends while playing in the playground. This is King Vena. Imagine a child playing together, killing your friends, who were like animals meant for slaughter. He killed them. What a cruel person. But because of his lineage from Adharma, Adharma knows no religiosity. It's Adharma. It's without any semblance of correct behavior.
Dharma was his grandfather.
Huh?
I didn't understand that Dharma was his grandfather.
Death is his is his grandfather, and death is coming from Adharma. Death is the father or the grandfather of death. We talked death, and then he had quarrel and anger. Those lists.
Yes.
Shall I go back? You can read back. But it comes in that line. Because he had a bad son, sinful reputation and great irreligion arose. From a bad son arises quarrel amongst everyone. From a bad son arises endless anxiety. This is King Anga. He's lamenting of the birth of his bad son. And then one night, filled with disgust, the sleepless king got up, unseen by others, and giving up his sleeping wife, left the house full of good wealth. When the citizens, priests, friends, and ministers understood that he had left in disgust, in great grief they searched the earth for him, just as inexpert yogis search for the hidden Paramatma. So they couldn't find. O Vidura, not finding the path of the king, they returned to the city in disappointment. With tears in their eyes, greeting the assembled sages, they informed the sages of the disappearance of the king. This is the great catastrophe. Because, a kingdom without a king gives a space for all the thieves and dacoits to immediately manifest. And this is what happens. So, but even if you have a bad king, it keeps the lower elements in check. And I was thinking we can make a very simple comparison. It's like in the Muslim Arab countries, they had some pretty heavy kings like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, but they were keeping all these heavy things in check, because we see historically, since these people have been pulled out, there's been nothing but warring and bloodshed and dacoitry, in those countries. So actually, even if you have a bad or a heavy person, it can still keep the quarreling elements at bay. Maitreya said, Brigu and other sages, seers of the people's welfare, saw that in the absence of a king, the citizens would become like animals. Calling his mother, Sunita, the sages made Vena the king of the world, though he was not approved by the ministers. So the sages in their wisdom thought that a bad king was better than no king. Hearing that Vena, a terrible punisher, had assumed the throne, sinful men hid themselves immediately. You see? Sinful men hid themselves immediately. Like rats, which are afraid of snakes. Vena, on ascending the throne, became proud because of the 8 powers. These eight powers of these 8 demigods are automatically invested in the king. But because he was irreligious, he took advantage of those powers and proudly considered himself worthy of worship. Thus he disrespected exalted people. And then it's verses describing the blind and intoxicatedly proud and uncontrollable Vena. Like a mad elephant, he traveled on his chariot around the earth, causing the earth and sky to tremble. And he preached, O Brahmanas, no more sacrifice, no more charity, no more oblations. He stopped performance of Dharma with the sound of drums everywhere. This is like the history of this land, Bharatvarsh. Seeing the activities of sinful Vena and considering the danger to the people, the sages, with compassion, spoke amongst themselves. Then they discussed that this is going to create great danger because Vena is so bad. Then they decided that they would approach Vena and try to give him good counsel. And they spoke pacifying, flattering words to him. And they decided that if he wasn't going to heed those words, then they would have to kill him. Having decided in this way, the sages, hiding their anger, approached him and spoke to him. After pacifying him with sweet words, the sages said, "O best of kings, dear sir, please understand what we will reveal to you. You will have increased life, wealth, and strength, and fame if you listen attentively." And then they speak to him that from the citizen's point of view, he has to again reinstate yagyas and honor the brahmanas and take care of the citizens' welfare. He says, if the sages say, if the Lord is pleased, what cannot be achieved in this universe? Thus all beings and the devatas, after tribute in the Lord of Lords, offer tribute to the Lord of Lords with respect. So they're beseeching him. And now Vena responds. This is Vena's response. "O fools, you accept what is adharma for dharma, giving up the husband who maintains you. You worship an illicit lover." So now Vena is going to just show the extent of his complete madness. "Fools who disrespect the Lord in the form of the king cannot enjoy happiness in this life or the next." And then he goes on to berate the sages. And Maitreya says, "Thus the sinful king, straying from the path with his intelligence lost, bereft of good fortune, though pacified by the sages, did not accept their request. The sinful person should be killed. He should be killed. If he continues living, certainly this sinful person of cruel nature will quickly turn the whole world to ashes." And then it's described, the sages, deciding to kill him, increased their anger. So anger can be used as a force. Increased their anger, and by incantations killed Vena, who was destroyed by criticism of the Lord. When the sages returned to their homes, Sunita, who was lamenting, preserved the body of her son by the use of mantras. So the body was maintained in oil also. But then, of course, we know the pastime that while the sages were reflecting, thus great dust from plundering thieves running about arose in all directions. So without the authority of the king, this is the result. So even a bad king had benefits. Nevertheless, it was too extreme in the case of Vena. Though they understood the disturbance to the population caused by people mutually looting wealth and killing each other, and understood that almost the whole population without a king had become thieves, devoid of sense control, the Kshatriyas, capable of preventing this, those seeing it happen, did not stop those who were looting others when the king had died. So the Kshatriyas were also compliant, because they didn't take any stand against this. And then the sages decided to churn the limbs of Vena and keep the family lineage. What we should appreciate by all these descriptions of these family connections is that it's like a pedigree. It's like these kings were like pedigrees. It's like they were produced from princes and princesses in this pure strain. It's like today we have sometimes a pedigree dog or something like that. It's come through a very pure lineage. So it's produced a very, complete pedigree of species of dog, for example. But in these kings, they were not ordinary people at all, because they had for hundreds of thousands of years come through this line. Their semen had been contained through this high lineage. So this is the nature of the Kshatriya strain and these kings, etc. So they wanted to maintain the line the lineage of Dhruva, coming from Uttanapad. This lineage wanted to be maintained. So they understood if we churn the body of Vena, who is in this line, Vena, even though he's irreligious and adharmic, he's still part of the line. He's still coming from King Anga. He's still coming from the sacrificial. Huh? Swayambhuva Manu, ultimately, yes. Swayambhuva Manu, ultimately coming in this line. So still, Vena's body had potency because it was in that lineage. So then they churned first of all the legs. And then from the churning of the legs, deciding this, the sages swiftly churned the thigh of the dead king. A dwarf appeared. He was black like a crow, very short in stature, with short arms, big jaws, short legs, flat nose, red eyes, and copper-colored hair. Nice to know what they look like, you know. Very clear. So these are like tribal people today, actually. This is where they were centered. When, bowing down humbly, he said, "What shall I do?" The sages said, "Sit." This means, in Sanskrit, it's nishad. So they became therefore he became the Nishad tribe. So the sages ordered him to sit, Nishad, and then he became that forerunner of the Nishad tribe. Because of accepting the terrible sins of Vena and on being born, his descendants, the Nishadas, inhabit the mountains and forests. So today there are descendants of these tribesmen. They call them tribals, that's what they call them. But they're very uneducated, ignorant type of people. And this is due to their descent, their lineage, even though they're spirit souls. In their spirit soul, their swarup is still there. But they're covered in these different karmic bodies. Don't differentiate. Maitreya said, when the sages churned the two arms of the sinless King Vena, a couple appeared.
Sunless.
What did I say?
Sinless.
Two arms.
You said sinless, but sunless.
Oh, sorry. Two arms of the sinless King.
Sunless.
All right. I'm not wearing my specs. Churned the two arms of the sunless King Vena. A couple appeared. Yeah, very significant. Because King Vena didn't have a son. But now it's as if Prithu Maharaj is going to be his son. And then, seeing the couple appear, the sages, knowledgeable in the Vedas, were highly satisfied, and understanding that a portion of the Lord had appeared, they spoke. The sages said, "He is an expansion of the Supreme Lord, and she," because a couple appeared, Supreme Lord and the maintainer of the world, is an expansion of, it is, and she, maintainer of the world, is an expansion of Lakshmi, inseparable from the Lord. So they both appear together. The first among kings, the male will increase his fame. He will be a great king, widely known, Prithu Shrava, and thus he will be named Prithu. The elegant divine woman with fine teeth, who enhances all ornaments and good qualities, named Archie, will accept Prithu as her husband. A portion of the Supreme Lord has been born with a desire to protect the world. Sri Lakshmi, dedicated to him, has been born inseparable to him. So I'm going to stop here because we're going to do the Gita Jayanti now. It's almost 9 o'clock. So tomorrow we're going to relish the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj's pastimes are extraordinary, are incredible, are very inspiring. These personalities, they inspire these noble qualities, which is our nature as spirit souls. These noble qualities are there within us. And when we associate with this Bhagavatam, these wonderful qualities start to radiate through as we appreciate the speciality of these personalities and their behavior. And as I said previously, just simply the language of the Bhagavatam is very elevated, and everything about it elevates our consciousnesses. So it clears the darkness of this vision in this age of Kali. So this Bhagavatam we must dedicatedly take shelter of daily and associate with it, as did Mahaprabhu. And always remember what is the essence, Bhakti Devi and Mahaprabhu, because without understanding Parakiya Ras, we cannot understand the 10th canto. And this is all explained in the 10th canto, but by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, we can comprehend it. Without Mahaprabhu, it's very difficult to understand the 10th canto. Jai, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.